The Bravest Word is a pretty good book. I do like it. It is suitable for my age group and it was a very good read altogether. I think I've got 2 chapters left and I can't wait to read them. I love the storyline and I think it's a good book, so I would definitely recommend it.
Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, one of your co-founders and hosts for today, coming to you from Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung country.
And I am Darren Kazenko, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader and book lover, and one of your co-hosts and co-presenters, should I say, on the Australian Book Lovers podcast, coming to you today from Corner Country. Although I do have to shout out to a friend of mine, Mike, who suggested that I might be pronouncing that a little bit incorrectly.
Okay.
It might be closer to Kana Country or Ghana Country, but I shall look into that a little bit more. But from the beautiful South Australia Corner Country.
Fantastic.
For episode number 55.
55. It's such a great number. It's kind of nice and fat and round. I love double numbers for some reason. That's one of my favourite things to do. Now, I'm sure that you've got a little about the spooky bits and pieces behind 55. What have you got for us?
Well, I don't know if that's spooky, and I've actually I'm keeping it a little bit trim for this episode,
right?
Because I just like the clean nature of the meaning of 55, because like I said, it's a double number. Yep. And now apparently in numerology 55 is actually a master number, and essentially it means to stay positive and maintain a good, healthy outlook on life, because according to 55 we are about to experience major life changes. So now I'm going to stay positive and I'm going to maintain a good, healthy outlook on life. And I certainly hope there's some big life changes. There is an election coming. Maybe that may or may not result in life changes, but no, always open to life changes. Sometimes they can be, well, not quite what the brochure promised, but let's see. We'll never know. But as far as, changing on the podcast, we're always going through changes. So it's maybe we're going to, who knows, maybe there's something major coming up in the near future, but we shall see. But yes, 55. But as far as 1955 in Australia goes, a couple of cool little things happened then. So on the 19th of February, the Southeast Asia Treaty Organisation was established at a meeting in Bangkok. The Guthaga Power Station became the first to generate electricity in the Snowy Mountains scheme.
Ooh.
Now, on the 8th of November, for all those people out there that love theatre and art, Ray Lawler's Summer of the 17th Doll received its stage premiere by the Union Theatre Repertory Company in Melbourne. There's a word I've never pronounced before, repertory. So by the Union Theatre Repertory Company in Melbourne, with the playwright in a leading role. And the reason why this is influential is it was the first authentically naturalistic modern drama in the theatre of Australia. So there we go. Also, Alan Marshall's childhood autobiography, I Can Jump Puddles, is published in 1955. Yes, and I still remember when my father, when he was alive, when I was a little kid, he went to, I think I might have mentioned it before, he came back from an auction with a huge cardboard box full of books for me. And that was the first one I pulled out, was I Can Jump Puddles. And I remember reading that when I was probably about 7 or 8. Yeah, so brought back a little memory seeing that. Now, as far as for all those math lovers out there, and I well, I suppose I count myself as a math lover. I'm not a math understander, but I am a math lover. In 1955, the population of Australia was 20.3 million approximately. And today, of course, it's currently hovering around the 26 million, so I got the calculator out and did some maths. And did you know, so since 1955, that means we're only averaging an increase in population, I hope I did my math right, of about 90,000 per year.
That doesn't sound right.
Since 1955,
maybe
so
90,000.
So it was 6 million. Is how much we've grown since 1955.
I guess that's still a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. We've got such a huge land. We're sending people back on. We're keeping people locked in cages, and I would dare say that we are just we're like the proverbial ants, trying to keep everyone away from a Big Mac meal. It's like there's plenty of room to go around. But yeah, I just found that a little bit surprising. From 20 million to 26 million, not a huge jump. It's not even really. I guess it's so since 1955, we've basically grown the equivalent of one small city. Yeah, so there we go. But a little bit of 1955 to celebrate episode 55.
And of course, 55 as a bingo call is Snakes Alive. Sorry, I don't always give you the bingo call, but yeah, Snakes Alive, 55.
There we go. We'll knock on wood, which I've just, for those people that can't see, I've just tapped my own head. Heading out to the bush this weekend, we did come across a baby brown snake last 2 weeks ago when we were out there. So knock on wood, Snakes Alive is not something that I will be catching with.
Topical, but let's not talk about it. Is that right?
Well, we'll see. I think so. We came across a baby brown snake, and then my wife and her friend were walking along the river, and a couple of tiger snakes were intertwined and came tumbling down the cliffs and sort of went straight past them. So they're still out and about because I guess we've still got pretty warm weather here for this time of year.
Yeah, you might have over there, but this side of the border, it's pretty damn cool.
Ooh, yeah, no, I'm in bare feet and T-shirts.
Oh, my goodness. No, I got the polos on. And having to wear my gloves while I go for walks. So, yeah, that's when you know it's really cold, when you can't even, have your icy fingertips yet.
Okay, yeah, definitely keep it down that way. But nonetheless, that's weather stuff. Episode 55, shall we jump into some news?
Yes, give us some news. So 2 bits of news, one serious and the other, of course, not quite so serious. But the first one is about digital lending rights. And just a reminder to authors that you need to register your books with the federal government scheme that makes payments to eligible Australian creators and publishers in recognition of income lost through the free multiple use of their work. In other words, if your book's in a library and people borrow it, you don't get anything apart from that first purchase. But if you are registered as the public lending right owner and educational lending right owner, then you get a small amount for every time your book is borrowed, which is fantastic. Now, at the moment, that's just paperbacks, but the Australian Society of Authors and the Copyright Agency and a couple of, advocates for creatives are trying to lobby for digital lending rights. But at the moment, the checks and amounts are coming through for the PLR, public lending rights, and the ELR. So if you don't know about it, get on to the Australian Society of Authors and have a bit of a look and register, because it happens once a year. I think you have to register before March. So jump in now and register, and then you'll be registered for next year. So that's a good thing. That's the news.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the second, of course, is continuing with my very exciting exploration of the meanings and origins of Australian words and idioms. So the Australian National University School of Literature, Languages and Linguistics has this published, and you can have a look on their website. We're up to the letter S. So if I said to you, Sanger, do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Or even a Sango. So Sanger is, of
Sango.
Course. Yeah, I don't know.
That might be a Melbourne thing or a Victoria.
No. In fact, it's been around since the 1940s. But no, Sanger is, what many Australians call a sandwich. And it's, basically a staple of the Australian cuisine. Comes in all shapes and sizes. And of course, there are gourmet sangers, steak sangers, veggie sangers, cucumber sangers, and even double banger sangers. So that is a pretty easy one, a sanger being in what, we are notorious for shortening words, and sanger is a very good one.
You're bringing back memories now of the old cheese twisty singers at recess at school.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And my husband talked about having chip sandwiches. It's like, really? Why would you put chips in a sandwich? But anyway, there you go. Mine were generally peanut butter and hundreds of thousands, so that's not a good thing.
We probably need a new word for sanger, though, something like a thermonuclear sanger or something, because I've just noticed that I didn't eat bread for a long time, for whatever reason, and then I started getting bread again. But depending on, if you just get like a good old-fashioned loaf of white bread nowadays, it does not go mouldy. It just stays the same for like 2 weeks if you forget about it, which I do.
That's hideous.
It makes no sense to me.
Preservative is there in that?
Yeah.
Is there anything nutritious at all in white bread?
I'm going to hazard a guess that not really. I was just shocked because it used to be, you use a potato and then you got to put it in the freezer for toast, because otherwise, fluffy things start growing, but not anymore.
Yeah, it's very tricky. So, being gluten intolerant, I have some gluten-free bread, and there is one Melbourne baker who delivers up here to the Macedon Ranges, which is fantastic. Only 3 times a week, and you've got to get in quick so you can get it before it goes, because it goes really quick. But that definitely has to live in the fridge, because if you leave it out, it's and I can't eat that much bread. So it makes the loaf last a little bit longer.
Well, considering we are on the letter S, maybe the new terminology can be, what are you having for lunch today? A suspicious sanger.
There you go. But anyway, so there you go. Sanger has been around since the 1940s. And in the 1960s, it was pretty much just sort of standard. So I thought I would just give you this one. And I know that you know it, but it is kind of related to our previous episode where we had Tanya Heaslip talk about School of the Air. So not all Australians or people from overseas would know about the School of the Air. So it's a government-funded educational program that uses a two-way radio communication system, as you might have guessed from Darren and I doing the Darren's interview, but also us doing our goodbye. Breaker. But of course, more recently, it uses internet technology, but it enables children in remote areas to participate in classroom activities for part of each day. And it was developed to supplement correspondence education, and it was pioneered in 1951. And it still remains the most important means of education for children who have no access to school. So there you go, still about there. Now, if I said to you screamer, would you know what I was talking about?
I would assume it'd be in the realms of a good mark in footy.
Absolutely. So a spectacular overhead mark. So Australian rules is a team game in which the ball is moved by running, kicking and handballing, and a mark being the act of cleanly catching a ball that's been kicked a distance of more than 15 metres. And I think that is pretty controversial at times. The umpires have to know what 15 metres looks like. Otherwise, it's play on. Anyway, the mark allows the catcher to take an unimpeded kick of the ball. So a screamer is a mark that results from an especially high and spectacular leap for the ball. Yeah, so there you go. Now, it was first recorded in 1953.
And under S, is there also the specky?
Let me have a look and see
Which
if
is,
we've got
also
specky. There's a lot of S's. No, hasn't got a specky, which is really short, similar to a screamer. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm assuming specky was short for spectacular at some point. Although, I'm no word historian, but take a specky or a screamer.
Yes. Now, there is, of course, a second sense of a screamer, a two-pot screamer, but, a 2-pint, 2-metre, 2-schooner screamer functions as a, words that measures for an alcoholic drink, and it indicates a person who's got a low tolerance of alcohol or becomes drunk easily. We used to say a one-pot screamer, a pot being a pot of beer, definitely a lightweight in terms of alcohol, which, is not necessarily a thing to worry about.
Well, speaking of football, there is, I think, another definition of a screamer, and that is, I think, just off the top of my head, it's a justified South Australian football supporter gobsmacked at the Victorian umpires rigging games to make sure that South Australian teams have no chance of winning.
Oh, I don't think so.
Screamer. Justified.
I don't think so. Not at all, not at all. All right, let me give you one more. And
Definitely.
this is perhaps a more modern one, and that is sea change.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is a bit,
Yeah.
bit of a modern one, or at least it's come into the vocabulary a fair bit the last few years.
Coming to the
hasn't it?
vogue, yeah. So it's a significant change of lifestyle. And here's one where I guess the art has instigated this, because it's came into being from the TV series Sea Change, which was fairly popular in Australia, because actually it was filmed down where we've got a holiday house down at St Leonard's on the Bellarine Peninsula, a lot of it, and also at Bowen Heads. So it derives from that, where the principal character moves from the city to a small coastal town, and it alludes to being a sort of it has its very early meaning in a profound or notable transformation, which was originally in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. So nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. So there you go. But the first Australian meaning recorded in 1998, and it became a verb, as we like to do. So sea change became a verb, to sea change, and then you have a sea changer. And of course later, and we have we refer to that up here in the Macedon Ranges as tree changes. So people come, rather than going to the sea, they come to the mountains, and we still have, lots of beautiful bush, natural bush and trees up here. So there you go. Sea change, tree change.
Yeah, I think obviously it has its prime meaning, but for me just the term sea change is sort of all encompassing now. Kind of, for me, at least for me anyway, it kind of means making that change in priorities and choosing to enjoy a little bit more of life and nature and surroundings, as opposed to chasing the proverbial rat wheel in the middle of the city. So yeah, sea change I think is any sort of change that where you decide, I want to be in a position where I can enjoy nature a bit more, enjoy sunshine and walking and living a little bit more. But,
And I think that the restrictions and lockdowns that Australia, a lot of Australia has had over the last couple of years have, given people the idea that sea change or trend change is the go. And I know regional real estate has kind of, gone gangbusters as people go, you know what, I can do my work from home. As long as I've got the internet, I'm good to go. Or I don't mind travelling 1 or 2 days a week or a fortnight, and giving my family the opportunity to, myself, to grow up in a regional area, which we know regionals are the best. So there you go.
Yes. Well, I'm going from a sea change to a bush change this weekend. And
yes,
I guess
you
are.
Yeah,
and then from the bush change back to the sea change.
Good. All right, that's enough S's. There's lots more. I'll do a few more next episode. So what news do you have for us, Darren?
Yeah, certainly. So it's only a quick news segment from my side of the fence today, but I just wanted to let all of our amazing listeners know that I've been doing a little bit of work on the website in the background, and the podcast page has gone through a little bit of a change. So now, listeners, if you want to jump on and take a look, you'll actually see, a really easy to find list of all the episodes and description of who the author is, and you've got a link to show notes, you've got a link to listen to the podcast. So a fantastic way to go back if you've missed out on any podcast, to have a listen through. If you want to revisit one of your favourite podcasts or one of your favourite authors, having a chat, or if you'd like to share a certain author or podcast with somebody, a friend or family member, it's a lot easier now. You can simply scroll down and everything's there in a nice, easy to discover format. So beautiful. Yeah, very excited about that.
It's magnificent, and I have to give you an absolute round of applause and a huge thumbs up for that. It looks great.
Yeah, we're getting there, and so there's lots more changes still to come, especially now there's a little bit of time back in the seat available for me. But but definitely starting with the podcast. So if you would like to delve back into a few episodes, if you'd like to revisit a particular author, or as I mentioned, if you'd like to share an author's interview with friends and family out there, by all means, jump on Australian Book Lovers website, click on the podcast tab up the top, and you will find them all there for your enjoyment. But goes without saying, thank you everyone for even tuning in and letting this podcast be, keep rolling as it's going. And we're episode 55, and it wouldn't be possible without all of our amazing listeners. So thank you so much, and there's so many more to come. But yes, that's my little news segment for this week.
Good news. That is good news.
Well, it is good news. It means the website's not getting any spider webs on it. and I don't like spiders.
Well, I reckon the spiders over here have been, and I hope my daughter's not listening to this episode because she is not keen on the old arachnids, the S word, but I think the spiders are all getting a bit cold and coming in trying to find their winter spots, because every time I turn around, there's someone else crawling across the carpet or the floor or up the wall, or I'm running into cobwebs. Yes, I live in a mud brick house, which is a little bit rougher perhaps, and you know, the beams are not smooth timber. But even so, you know, I'm feeling like, really, do I need to be charging people rent? There's a lot of you out here. So I'm forever, you know, glass and card outside, glass and card outside. So, yeah.
Well, you're braver than I am. I can't. I mean, I'm starting to sort of be a little bit chill with the huntsmans, as long as they're not like, you know, Guinness Book of Record breaking size. But when I was out in the bush a couple of weekends ago, pretty positive it was. We were clearing out a shed, so of course you're going to find something nasty out there.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was a funnel web of some description, because I know South Australia does have funnel webs, or at least relatives of funnel webs. For one is the trapdoor spider, which we have out there, but this one was just one of the nastiest looking spiders. And talk about feeling a little bit exposed with my thongs. Yes, they're a mean looking. They're not very big, but oh boy, was this one brave and dangerous. So unfortunately, that spider is no longer with us, but it was a case of there was no option at that point. So I do apologise to all the rest of the spiders family. Please, revenge is not very pretty and not worth doing. Which is why I don't like killing spiders, because I just figure there's going to be a revenge. And I don't want to be a victim of revenge, not from a spider.
Yeah.
But there's my spider story for today.
Good spider story. Not.
But no, all right. Surprising that I always thought summer would be when they're on the move. I'd never really... Spiders in winter is not really a
I'm just thinking it is odd that they're all deciding. I reckon they just think it's too cold outside and they're coming in. So talking about coming in, we are coming in to the time when you are going to tell us about our fabulous author guest this week.
Yes, absolutely. So
this
I was,
episode.
100%. Once again, but lucky to interview just an amazing human being, someone who is absolutely an inspiration. And Kate Foster is her name. She was so gracious to chat with me and let us know all about her new book release and the inspirations behind her writing, the inspirations behind, you know, her journey in life, and animals play a big part, like doggies play a big part. So lots of talks about pets and dogs, and also just about the importance of the subject matter when it came to the book she's written and the work she's still working on. But wow, what a fantastic opportunity it was, and I just loved every minute of it, and I have no doubt the listeners are going to love this interview with author Kate Foster.
Excellent.
Okay, Australian book lovers, I am so happy to introduce our next guest today, who may have appeared a little bit before on one of our podcasts, but today we are all about all of her work, her books, and maybe some stuff that may be coming up in the near future. Everybody, thank you so much, and I would like to introduce you, to Australian author Kate Foster. Kate, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Oh, goodness, no, thank you very much for having me. You guys do so much for Australian books and the community, and it's lovely to be a guest. So thank you.
Yeah, but see, I get the fun of meeting all these amazing people just like yourself. So it's definitely doesn't come across to me as work, that's for sure. Although, no, it doesn't. Never, ever, ever.
No, I can imagine. Just chatting. Yeah, with different authors must be great.
It's one of those things. If I told my little version of me back in, when I was growing up, when I was 5 or 6, that this would be something I'd be doing, there'd be a big grin on that little boy's face, because even back then I loved books. So yes, very, very exciting stuff.
Well,
but now, for all of our listeners out there that haven't had the pleasure of maybe hearing you speak, or maybe reading any of your previous interviews that you've done, or don't really know who you are, I'm wondering if you might be able to let us all know who Kate Foster is, and maybe if you can share when it was that for Kate Foster writing became an important part of your life.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a children's author. I write mainly middle grade, so for the 8 to 12 market. Audience is probably better than market. It's not fair to call kids a market. And I also write chapter books as well. So most of my books will touch on mental health, and pretty much all of my books have an autistic main character, and dogs, which I don't know, people probably already know that. I'm quite dog mad. So yeah, I have been writing since I was little, to be honest with you. I am definitely one of those kind of nerdy book people. I was always reading in class when I shouldn't have been, desk lifted up, so I was hiding behind it from the teachers.
Now you brought back memories. Yes, the old lift up desks.
Oh gosh, absolutely. I used to love those because you could hide, you could lift up your desk, pretend you were looking for something, and actually you'd just be reading a few pages. So yeah, that was me quite often, consuming C.S. Lewis and Enid Blyton, and just every book really that I could possibly get my hands on when I was young, and I used to love to write as well. So I think the earliest memory I have of writing was a story called Monty Mouse. I don't know what happened. I was very small. I don't know what happened in the story, but I remember my brother, he was older than me, and a very typical annoying older brother. He saw what I was doing and obviously took the mickey, and then I hid my writing and only did it in private in my bedroom when no one knew that I was doing it.
There you go, a little bit of secret passion began early.
Absolutely, yes, but I did it so I wouldn't be ridiculed by a big brother. Bless him. He's very supportive now, so I should add that he's a good brother. Just brothers are supposed to annoy.
Well, yes, I can confirm that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I wasn't brilliant, I was the annoying younger sister that used to watch my brother lining up his soldiers for hours, and then as soon as he was ready to play the game, I'd kick them all down. So
I got
my own back.
Well, who knows? Maybe in the best possible way. Maybe he's a little bit jealous now of the arc that has happened with your writing and where it's brought you to today.
Yeah, very possibly. I don't think my brother's not the most creative of people. He's very practical, very hands-on. So I don't think it would be a life that he would have ever dreamed of. But yeah, I think he's a proud big brother, and I'm a proud little sister of him. So yeah. So my writing became quite private for a very, very long time, all through my teens and early 20s, and then children started to come along and building a family, and I was still writing, and I don't think it was really until I was in early 30s when I decided to start pursuing it as not necessarily a career, but perhaps I could get published.
Take it up to try out the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. People were telling me it was the books were good, and not just family, because I think you're obliged as a parent or friend to be honest, but to not be honest and say that you love their work, that you read it. But yeah, no, these were sort of other people who were also into writing and editing, were telling me it was good, get it out there. So yeah, so it wasn't really in the last sort of 10 years, I'd say, when I've really pursued it more than just a hobby, I guess.
And did any of your original, and I suppose back then, secret stories or ideas, have any of them sort of travelled with you all this way and maybe resurfacing again, or do you have like a secret box with some old penned out stories?
No.
No, not at all anymore. Actually, I wish I did.
When I was younger, I really only ever wrote fantasy. I loved reading fantasy, and so that's what I wrote all the time. It was always some kind of out there, outer space, or otherworldly stories, and yeah, it couldn't be more opposite, really. I then progressed on to writing a lot of horror, which I actually still really enjoy. I love writing kids horror. I like taking kind of real dark adult concepts and then making them sort of suitable for kids. I don't think there's enough kids horror out there for that middle grade market.
You get my vote. I think that's a fantastic idea. More horror for kids.
Oh, absolutely.
In the best possible way.
Yeah. I think kids like a lot of kids anyway love to be scared. It's the same kind of adrenaline rush that you get from going on roller coasters and anything like that, really. So I hope to resurrect some of my horrors one day, but certainly none of my fantasies. I don't think they were. They were just fun practice writing experiences, I think. So now I kind of write the opposite of what I've written for most of my life. I write nice, hopeful, gentle contemporaries. So very different.
Well, and probably another adjective there could be important as well. By the looks of it, these are quite important stories to be told, and the way
I
you've told them.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the first book, which is Pause. Now, and as you mentioned, that's based around an 11-year-old autistic boy who's getting ready for high school. And yes, I remember what it was like to go to the first day of high school. That was terrifying. But I was just wondering, maybe if you could possibly share where the inspiration came from. Like, what was the inspiration for the story, and what was the journey like from your perspective to take it from that, that initial thought and concept all the way through to being published?
Yeah, for sure. So Pause, I think I carried Pause around with me for a very, very long time. It was a story that was very much based on life experience. So I don't think that book was ready to be written until I actually wrote it. If that makes sense. It wasn't a book which I sort of added things to and wrote over time. It was a story that was always the bare bones of it were always with me. I wanted to write a story about a beautiful autistic boy and his beautiful little dog, and how they together support each other, and his sort of journey to understanding friendships, because autistic children don't have friendships. Well, they do have friendships, but they don't have friendships that mirror a lot of neurotypical friendships. And so society and school life kind of teaches us that our friendships are wrong, and they're not normal. We should be laughing and joking and running around with our friends, when actually all friendships look different. Sometimes just sitting with a friend, not necessarily talking to them, just playing the same game or reading next to a friend, that's friendship as well. And I think all of these friendships should be celebrated and talked about more, because they shouldn't all look the same. And so friendship was a huge part of what I wanted to put into this book. So it wasn't really until I was actually on submission with one of my horrors, strangely enough, and I just was in a place, I'd gathered all this life experience, and I was in a place ready to write it. And to be honest with you, it took about 3 weeks to draft.
Oh, okay.
Very, very quick indeed. And the finished product isn't much different to the first draft.
But you did say you carried it around with you for so long, and it would have been like letting your best friend onto the page. Being that story was probably your best friend for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'd played around with it in my head for such a long time. I just knew exactly how it needed to look and what needed to happen and when, and what tone I needed to go for, how much emotion there needed to be on the page. And because it's very much based on real experiences with myself and my youngest son, it was really just sort of, I guess, therapeutic in a way. It was a way of writing down some of the struggles that we've sort of been through and we go through each day. And so it was a very, very quick process, that book. And then then when I'd written it, I sent it off to my then agent, and things didn't quite work out with that agent. So I actually decided to leave her and query Pause with new agents. And I actually signed with a new agent in about 2 months after that. And we went on submission within 2 weeks, and the book sold within 6 weeks. So It was a whirlwind. So that's not normal. That was a very fast process from kind of leaving the first agent to selling the book.
Obviously, it was the right decision then, by the sounds of it, to make just advertise with one and pursue a different agent.
Absolutely. I wasn't, I think because Pause was such a personal book, didn't have that bond with the previous agent, didn't have that trust, I don't think. And I needed to trust someone who would put it in the right hands. And I was lucky that the next agent sold it to Walker, who have been just the most fantastic family I could ever ask for. They're absolutely extraordinary people. So yeah, it worked out. It worked out perfectly.
Yeah, well, I think it did indeed. Yeah, I mean, and not only the reviews you're getting are just outstanding, and we're from readers here in Australia, readers over in England. It's obviously the kind of tale that can literally run its way across the world. I was going to try and use some doggy analogy, but I don't know because a horse gallops. What does a dog do?
Scamper?
Scamper?
Do they scamper? I'm not sure.
Yeah. But so they've definitely helped to bring your story to the world, which I think is amazing.
I'm very lucky. Very, I think lucky. Pause was a great pleasure to write, and I'm, knowing that people are getting so much from it is, just an unbelievable privilege that I'm in this position to give it to them, to those children and to those families out there that need, to see an autistic child in a nice, gentle, hopeful story, rather than it be something incredibly hard and all about being accepted and none of that nonsense. It's just a nice, hopeful story about an autistic boy and his dog.
So in an interview I read of one of yours, it was interesting because one of your quotes was, what I think we need are more published books where a disabled or neurodivergent character is heading up a dangerous quest or hilarious adventure. And so that really stuck with me because, what you were just saying then about how you just wanted a nice story about an autistic boy and his dog, and with a nice ending. And I like the idea of celebrating, I guess, the unique aspects of a character. Because obviously a character is made up of all those unique aspects, but at the same time allowing the story itself to shine through, as opposed to having, the aspects of a character becoming the main focus of the story. Sometimes maybe it's worthwhile, but I like the idea of, I guess, because I think in life sometimes some of the greatest stories, they come from unexpected challenges, and it's those unexpected challenges, they invite a journey for anyone that's ready to sort of dig deep and learn a little bit more about themselves, as opposed to, say, a story where the journey is designed by a character or by a persona. So I love that sort of that quote of yours, and I was just wondering, when it comes to your writing, as far as maintaining truthfulness to the story, as opposed, I guess I'm not sure if I'm putting it in the right way, but like you said, by putting a book where a disabled and neurodivergent character is enjoying part of the story and is not the story itself, which I think is a good way to do it. Was that a conscious decision that you started to bring into your writing, or was it something that happened organically?
Definitely a conscious decision. I'm not suggesting for 5 seconds that these other books shouldn't exist. We need to have books that, that show the struggles of being disabled, or autistic, ADHD. We need to see that it's not easy. We need to see how it can be a struggle for not just the character themselves, but their families, their friends, their siblings. So I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that those stories don't have a place in the world. But unfortunately, when you think of disabled characters, generally they're the only books you can think of where the disability, like you say, is the center of the story, and it's all about, oh look, I'm going to prove that I can do it, and again, nothing wrong with that, but can we just have some stories where we've got a disabled character doing amazing things, and even though we need to understand that their disability can hinder them in some respects, we need that balance. So we need to see some of the things that they can do. Another thing that you often see in these books is a disabled character whose disability is their superpower. And, I'm not keen on that myself. I don't personally look at autism as a superpower. Yeah, it has some great aspects, but it's not a superpower. It's incredibly difficult to navigate life with a brain like I have. And, I'm lucky that I have a very supportive family, always have done. And now I have wonderful children and husband who are always supporting me, but it's still incredibly hard. So we think about a lot of the kids out there who don't have that understanding and support. It is it is extremely difficult. So I don't see it as a superpower. It's very difficult. And also the other thing you see in a lot of books with disabled characters is that they become cured in some way, and that's another thing that's just, I'm sorry, we don't, that's not we don't need to see that anymore. So so it was a very conscious decision on my part to write a book which was simply with a autistic character at the center. We see his thoughts, we see how he deals with a lot of life, how he struggles, but also we see him just getting out there and doing normal things and being brilliant. And we see how the world interacts with him and how simple it can be just to listen. One thing that disabled people say often is just listen to me, listen to what I have to say, and then, help me. We don't expect the world to bend over backwards for us. We just, just small change, ask me how I am, if there's anything you can do to support. So the other thing that was a very conscious decision was writing into pause secondary characters in a supporting cast who were just very natural with the main character. They just accepted who he was, and they asked him how he was, and they made small accommodations for him that made all the difference to his day. So I feel like maybe I've gone off on a tangent there, but
no, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear is a bit of a tangent about that, because I think it's such an important element to your writing, and it's a very important subject in general. And and as I mentioned before, I think that quote is quite a powerful quote. And I think for me, as someone who's not too fluent in a lot of these areas, I kind of feel as though when it comes from a literary perspective, it's just a matter of trying to be inclusive. So, for example, obviously, hint your accent. Obviously, at some point you weren't here in Australia, but where you were was also where a lot of my childhood reading came from. For example, the famous Five, Getting All Adventures and stuff like that. But if you have, for example, if one of the famous Fives was neurodivergent, that doesn't take away the mystery that has to be solved each book or each episode, whichever way you want to look at it. Do you know what I mean? It's and so the adventure is the adventure, and it's not so much a focus on each of the characters' idiosyncrasies or unique aspects, anything like that. Sure, they play a part in the character and motivation, but it's all about what's happening in that weird cave beneath the trees on the other side of the town or something like that. And then it's a case of everybody. That's where I'm thinking that life has those challenges awaiting anybody who's willing to do it. And then that's the beautiful thing. We all get to learn a little bit more about ourselves. But I think the idea of, using your style of writing to help increase that inclusive sort of aspect of people with either disabilities or neurodivergent, I think that's just a wonderful thing, and probably it's probably gaining a lot of momentum now, I suspect. What would your thoughts be? Because I don't have a great feel of this sort of area, being a bit of a horror writer, but do you think, I get the perception that it may be a new level of respect and importance coming to this sort of, celebration of character?
I would love to say but I'm not really seeing it. I'm seeing it being talked about, as with all representation and diversity in literature, and there seems to be an increase in certain marginalised groups, but the one that I feel continually seems to be lacking is disability representation. I'm not saying that there aren't authors out there doing their best, but it doesn't seem to be translating into the number of books being published. When I was doing a bit of research on autistic authors specifically in Australia, I was quite stumped. I didn't come up with many at all, and it was quite a surprise, because I was hoping to reach out to some and maybe work on some projects together, and it was a surprise. So then when you kind of branch out from there and you start looking at disabled authors, again, there just weren't enough, or if any. So it's very slim pickings. And there's a quote which, interestingly, I cannot remember who said it, In fact, it might not even be a quote. It might just be something somebody said to me once. My brain doesn't always retain.
But we can call that a quote. That's a quote.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't always retain the details. But somebody once said that of all of the marginalised groups that exist in the world, the one that anybody could become a part of at any time is the disabled group and community, you know, which covers, obviously neurodivergency isn't really something that you develop over time, but chronic illness, and anybody could be in that group at any point in their life. And that really stuck with me, and it's really made me sort of, I don't know, kind of think, why are we not pushing this representation? Why are we not discussing it more? Why are we not putting these books and into children's hands specifically, and teach them and help them with that empathy and that compassion from such a young age? Because children are such little sponges and everything's so natural to them. So I wish I could be a bit more positive in my answer there, but I'm not seeing it, and I'm sort of disappointed.
Well, but at the same time, you may not be seeing it, but you are bringing a spotlight to the need. And therefore, when you do start seeing it, I suspect that you've helped play a part in that emerging a new level of respect and, changing of the tide, so to speak. Yeah,
I hope that, my little voice is doing some good for maybe the next generation of authors, and not just authors, any kind of creative, really. And I think as well, we have to kind of bring into that, autism is still such a new thing. It's still something that people don't know huge amounts about. So it is time to really open up that conversation about it. Diagnoses or methods of diagnosis are changing, and so more people are becoming diagnosed now, and so there does need to be a lot more out there for people to pick up from bookstores so they can read and understand. So there are some really great autistic authors around the world doing their thing, but I don't see enough, and I would love more.
I'm just thinking while you're saying that I guess, with the COVID vaccination thing, that's where it's made it difficult for me to understand more about, something like autism, because there's so much, I guess I can see it straight away. A lot of it is incorrect information, and a lot of it is, using that condition as some form of manipulation, for political reasons or for persuasive reasons. And there's just all this white noise out there about it. And I think, you're exactly right. If to read a story written by somebody who understands it, then that is going to be such a greater opportunity for a learning opportunity than, the bits and pieces that I pick up from the internet or conversations, and I just, none of it, some of it's so contradictory that I think, I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that is probably, not sure who to believe, what to believe, when it comes to something like this. And to know that all they have to do is pick up a copy of, for example, Pause and have a read, then there's so much truth there to be found that, you could probably spend hours trying to search for example, on the internet, where you're just going to get lost and end up, hating yourself even more, for getting even more confused. So yes, I think this is where the importance of a book like Pause, it really comes into its own.
Well, I agree. I mean, obviously it's my book, so I'm going to say it's really important that everybody should read it. But you're right. It's and the other difficult thing is when there isn't a selection of books out there by autistic authors. And I'll just focus on that because that's, what I know about. But really, you could use this for all disabilities. There needs to be a selection out there because autism is different for everybody. No two autistic people are the same, just the way that no two neurotypical people are the same. So, when you've got only a couple, you're only getting a couple of authentic experiences. And in these books, if you had a range, if we were publishing a range and there was a whole range of autistic books on the shelf, you're going to get a whole bigger cross section of what autism is like and how it presents and how we are, how our brains are all completely different to each other. Not all autistic people are amazing at maths, and yet that's still believed because we go back to the days of Rain Man. that's still the one thing, the one character that people bring up all the time. But the bottom line is that it's nonsense. I'm terrible at maths.
And you cannot believe anything Hollywood, unfortunately.
Oh, absolutely. So there really does need to be, there's a lot of pressure on the very few autistic authors there are out there at the moment to kind of speak for their entire community. And it's just impossible to do that, and that's why there just needs to be this increase in representation, publishing autistic authors, but also making the whole process much more user friendly for autistic people as well, because it's quite a difficult one to navigate, and kind of understand what's expected of us, and when. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, sounds like, amongst everything you're doing, maybe you start thinking about starting your own little publishing company.
Yeah, no. I'll stick to just the writing now. I think that's that's where I belong.
Fair enough. So, obviously publishing, yes, maybe not to jump into that sort of hot sauce one just yet. But when it comes to writing about, well, Kevin, which was the name of the dog in the story, what was it like trying to bring to life a dog in a book?
Oh.
Because that's got to be super fun. But I'm also, it sounds simple, but when I sat here thinking today, I was like, no, actually, that'll be quite tricky. I mean, I've written a cat into a story, and that was really hard, and I don't even think I've done that well at all. But a lot of the reviews, they just rave about the dog in the story. So how do you go about introducing characteristics of a dog in a book?
Easy. I spend so much time with my dogs that I'm there. When they're like little people, then you see, I've got 2 dogs, and they're so different, and they have such individual characteristics and traits, and I just love it. And so I don't find it that difficult, to be honest with you. I'm dog mad. My children drive my children around the bend, because everywhere we go, I'm like, oh, look at the dog, let's go and say hello to the dog. And so every dog, I'm afraid I study and watch, and so I don't find that one too difficult.
Okay. Well, has Kevin got a little bit of lots of little dogs that you've known along the way, or is Kevin kind of based on a particular dog that might have grabbed your heart?
Oh, absolutely. Kevin is based on my first dog, Claude. He's a Spoodle as well, and he looks exactly the same as Kevin.
Oh, wow.
We got him pretty much a few months after we moved to Australia, and we went to because he's a second-hand dog, as I like to call my dogs, rather than.
I haven't heard that term before for a doggy.
Yeah, well, Ian, my second dog, is actually third-hand. But so Claude is a second-hand dog, and we when we went to meet the family who were going to surrender him, we walked into their house, and he just made a beeline for my youngest son, and he just sat with him and loved him from that moment we got there. And he still, to this day, 8 years later, is just so tuned into my youngest son, his needs, his emotions, and it's extraordinary to witness and be a part of. He's very tuned into most people, to be honest with you, most emotions. He reads the room very, very well. But my son in particular, he seems to have this sort of next level connection with him, which is really quite amazing. He will just lay across him if my son's upset, or he'll just sort of sit next to him if he's feeling a bit stressed. It's really amazing. So in that respect, Kevin is 100% a real dog.
And it was easy to write. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into a question I have for your new book, which is called The Bravest Word. Mm-hmm. Now, that also, of course, features an 11-year-old autistic boy and another super cool Wolfie, another doggy. But I was wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about, because I can tell that you're drawn to, that magical bond that can exist between us and our pets, but also how there's also that potential for powerful magic that can happen. You know, something along the lines of your dog with your son. What, you know, is it something you've been aware of all the time, or was there something during you growing up that with an animal that sort of flicked the switch for you when you realised, wow, there's magic here? Or how does it come about that?
Well, I think autistic people have a connection with animals. I'm not saying all autistic people again, because it would be silly to speak for the entire world's population of, but it's very well known, I think, that autistic people have an incredible different connection with animals than other people. So and I think dogs in particular, there's I don't know quite if there's a science behind it that's being investigated at the moment, but I grew up with a dog, and he was a big, huge golden retriever, like a big lion, but he was just everything. He for me, he was I would just, everywhere I went, he was there, and he was always knew when you needed a stroke. Almost, he'd come over and obviously want a stroke, but it was almost like he was offering himself to you. So look, you're obviously a bit stressed, here I am, stroke me, it will make you feel better. And even at a young age, I was very aware that if I just sat with my dog and stroked him, or put my arm around him, or held his paw, I would feel so much better about anything that was going on. So I think for me, it was probably before we even got him that I knew I had some kind of connection with animals. But once he came into our lives, it was, I began to understand it, and I guess my need for a dog a lot more. So now I've got 2, and I'd like a lot more. So we'll see if that ever happens. My husband's not too keen.
I was going to say, is there any new doggies on the horizon, or have you...
I hope so. Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to have a whole pack, but probably not just yet. I've got quite a lot of travelling and that to do this year, and I'm not a big fan of leaving dogs home alone. So so I don't think we'll have one just yet. But actually, to be honest with you, I'll only ever rehome dogs now. I don't think I'd ever get a puppy. I think I'd always try and offer a secondhand dog a new home. Absolutely. So we'll see.
But if you do have the travel you still need to do, one option which is kind of practical too, so you wouldn't be causing too many discussions, and that is you get a bunch of huskies and then let them take you across the country.
Wonderful.
So you get your big pack of animals, you get to travel. It's all sorted.
I'll suggest that to my husband, see how he feels.
Just tell him it's cheap fuel. You know.
I can see it taking quite a long time to reach places, but a lot of fun. Yeah,
definitely a lot of fun. Yes. Oh dear. Now, when did the story for the Bravest Word actually begin to take shape?
Oh goodness. Again, I think this one was probably with me for quite a while. This is very based on real experiences again. This was an incredibly therapeutic book to write for myself. And so, yes, I think again, I carried this story around with me for quite some time. And I wrote it not long after Paws sold. So it was, because obviously I think most people know that once you've sold your book, you then wait 18 months minimum until it's published. It's all the editing and cover design and all that kind of process that takes place. So so while waiting for all of that sort of thing to start happening, I wrote The Bravest Word. So again, I think that was much more probably for me, that book, based on my own mental health struggles and things that I have going on with my family as well. So it was a real bit of therapy on the page. So very kind of honest and raw, and I hope that's what people take from it when they read it, that it really touches their heart.
I was lucky enough to receive a copy of your new book. But The Bravest Word, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read it yet because I think I mentioned just off air, a good friend of mine and his daughter travelled from New South Wales down to the beautiful old beaches of Adelaide, and she's got the book at the moment reading it. So she's 13 years old and she's loving it, and so there may or may not be, there will be a audiobook review from one of your first fans of the new book, hopefully. So
well, that would be lovely. I'm so pleased. I haven't had many reviews yet, but the ones I have had have been really positive, which is I was worried about this book because it is quite raw, and it's not just a book about a boy that has depression. It's about depression, so it's about him realizing that he's not well. So it's very I've used the word confronting, but I'm not sure if that's quite the right word to use, but it's very, what's the word? There's a really good word out there to describe what it's like, but it's raw. I think that's the best thing I could probably use at the moment. But so far, it's been received well, and I'm kind of very relieved.
Well, it's I think it's quite a really important subject. I mean, it's just not something I would have thought about. I don't have any children myself, so it's not something I've given much thought to, in the sense of I just never imagined that kids can show signs of depression from a young age. Without I understand if there's like external circumstances or forces beyond their control. Obviously, sometimes people have really horrible opportunities thrown at them in life, which can rob all the good feelings. But just the idea that at that age, and then coming to grips with understanding what's happening to you is, it's a very profound sort of thing to come across for me. And that that just the fact that, an 11-year-old boy who I was once, that age, and I look back and think, if I knew that was something that I could be aware of, would I've been more understanding of myself, or would I've grown to understand myself on a better level? Because it's not something that would have ever been brought up, growing up in the late 70s, early 80s.
No, absolutely. But even to this day, it's still not as accepted as it should be. There's still far too many people that believe there's no such thing as children being depressed. Why would they be? Their lives are lovely and it's wonderful, and they've got everything, and it's all fun and games. And frankly, it's just not true for a lot of kids. Yeah, it is. It's great. Same for grown-ups. A lot of grown-ups sail through life without any concerns, but there's a lot of children out there who don't. And like you say, a lot of them will have external circumstances, traumas that they've been through, which obviously lead to mental health issues. And that seems to be okay for a lot of people. That, we understand why that the child's struggling. But when there isn't any clear-cut reason as to why a child is sinking and removing themselves from life and the things that they love, it's not because we don't know and we can't physically see what the problem is. We don't know how to help them. And you mentioned that the bravest word, the boy, the character Matt, is autistic. Now, he is autistic, but we don't actually know that in the book. So afterwards, like what happens after he actually does receive a diagnosis of autism, but this happens after the finish of the book. Because one thing that autistic children who aren't diagnosed or have the support that they need, their mental health collapses because they are struggling all the time to understand why they don't fit in, why noises are so painful, why they can't be comfortable amongst other people near them. And it leads to a lot of anxiety and depression in children. So those diagnoses of autism is so important. But I've read books that have children in them who have depression and who have anxiety, but I don't think, myself personally, I'm sure they exist, but I personally have never read a book where a child is learning that they have depression. So it was really important for me to write in that respect, so that children could understand just how intrusive the thoughts can be and how controlling and how they trick you. So it was, it's a big topic, a very big topic to write about. And I'm sure for some people it will be maybe a bit confronting, I guess. I'm not sure.
The story itself isn't the only thing you're bringing to this very important subject, because you also do workshops and talks. And I understand that your workshops are designed basically for grades 4 to 7. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the group I think that would get the most from them.
So now I assume, obviously, for the most part, it's going to be super fun for you, super fun for the class, but to be able to bring these sorts of stories and also to open up the conversation with kids must be such a special experience. And so I'm just wondering if you off the top of your head of say some memorable moments that you might have had while discussing your stories or discussing what inspired stories when you are in the class chatting with some middle graders.
Oh, it's become my most favourite part of this job.
Oh, really?
Without a question. I wasn't sure how I'd cope with presenting like that. I'm not brilliant in social settings, but kids are the best. I just love kids. They're just so blunt and honest and brilliant. They bounce back and they're just awesome. And so I love being amongst children. And when you turn up at classes to do a talk, you just don't know what kind of kids you're going to get.
No, no doubt.
You don't know what the class dynamics will be like. You don't know if you're going to have that one child that's just full of beans and just chatting and dancing. And see, I like that. I like to see kids feeling comfortable. So if comfortable means standing up, if it means changing seats, if it means, having a book in your hand, then that's what kids should be able to do. If you allow them that comfort, I generally think that they'll learn better. I know that's not always practical for teachers who are trying to contain 25, 30 kids. It's not that simple, but certainly for me during my school visits, I like to see kids just being comfortable and natural in the situation. But I've had some of the best conversations at the school visits that I've done so far. I always start with fun kind of icebreaker stuff, so to get the kids nice and relaxed. I show them lots of pictures of dogs, obviously, and we play some games, but then with the pause, we talk a lot about autism. What is autism and how it might look and how it might be for that person, and how you can be a good friend to somebody who's autistic. And the kids usually by that point are so kind of like they just turn into these lovely little sponges, and they listen and they take it all in. But I've had some fantastic conversations where afterwards I sign the books for the children, and there'll always be maybe one kind of hanging back, and then they'll come up to me quietly and say, I'm autistic and it's really nice to meet you and have this book. And those moments just make your heart just grow. Oh, it's just magic. But I think probably to this day, my favourite was one of the first school visits I did. A little boy put his hand up and he said, he was so enthusiastic and bubbly, and he was bouncing on the floor. And he said, I know someone with 6 disabilities. And he started to tell me, these disabilities, autism and ADHD and dyslexia. And he said, do you know who that person is? I said, no. He said, it's me. It's me. I have 6 disabilities. But he was so proud to tell me and share it. And it wasn't an issue. It wasn't an embarrassment. It was just, this is me. This is what I have. And, I said, thanks, thanks so much for sharing. And it was just, it stayed with me, all this time, as one of, I think, the best little moments of my school visits so far. Yeah. So I hope I get to do school visits for the rest of my life, because I love them.
Yes, and I've got no doubt you're going to get a whole lot more memorable moments to come as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Now, I've got no doubt by doing this, you're probably inspiring a lot of kids to pick up their pen or open up their laptops and start writing their own stories, and probably good deal of adults too, if we're going to be honest. So I'm just curious, to step into the lighter side of things. When it comes, the publishing process. So, your 2 books now, the Bravest Word and Pause. What was some of the most surprising aspects that you sort of discovered, as part of the publishing process? And drawing from your experience, what sort of tips or advice do you have for any new authors preparing for their literary journey?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting question. Gosh, surprises. Just how incredibly lovely everybody is.
Oh.
Yeah, I know that I have been so lucky to have landed at Walker. And I'm one of these people that just always feels like an absolute burden. I think that every time I send an email to someone, I just think they're going to look at it and say, "Oh God, it's her again. What does she want now?" But I have never ever felt that way with anyone at Walker. They are just so friendly and so open to hearing what I have to say and supporting me with what I need. And I just, I feel incredibly blessed that when I joined Walker, Lindsay Knight was at the helm because she believed in me and she believed in my books. And now Claire Halifax has taken over and she's just as incredible and supportive. And so, that's probably been the biggest surprise for me, is that despite, you hear these horror stories, I certainly have done over the years, heard some real horror stories of how people have been treated by their publishers. I haven't had it once. I can't think of a single time with my publisher where I've felt like I'm not wanted or needed or cared for. And it's been, it's just been
That's
a dream.
fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like I'm fortunately, I'm one of these people that's always waiting for the bubble to burst.
I know that feeling well.
But so far, I just hope that they, I can keep selling books and doing well for them and making them proud, because I don't really want to go anywhere. They are just a lovely bunch of people. So that's probably been my biggest surprise so far, is how welcome I've been made to feel. And as for tips for anyone going through the publishing process, I would say, don't be embarrassed or shy to ask questions. So if you're not sure about something, if people are asking you about where your book's going to be available to buy, or you're concerned about something in your book that hasn't been discussed, or you'd like to sort of put forward an idea for a cover design, don't be embarrassed or shy to do that. I have done that throughout the process. I have been included anyway, which is obviously absolutely wonderful to be asked my opinion about these things. But if I suddenly think of something, I very often will just keep a note of it until I've got a few things to ask. But when I email and I ask, and I always get such an honest answer that just puts my mind at rest. And I think, very often as authors, once we sell our work, we lose control. And it's very difficult when you've got this little piece of your soul, this thing that you poured all your time and love into, and suddenly you don't know what's happening with it. It's somewhere in that process out there with different people, and it's in a queue for this, and then it's in a queue for that. And your mind can sort of play these tricks on you and make you very stressed about the process. So I would say, ask. Don't be afraid to just put a quick email over. I mean, if you're emailing every day, every week, then you might not be received as well.
You might not be in the top 10 favourites.
Yeah. But, like I say, I do it. I write down some ideas that I have, questions that come to my mind, and then I'll email, and there'll be a few of them all at once. But it always puts my mind at rest, and I'm always very grateful that I've asked. So that would be my biggest tip, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent tip, and because for a lot of people it's going to be a learning curve. The whole act of publishing is a learning curve, so then you can't know what to expect if it hasn't done before. So I think you bring up a good point where try not to let things become a source of anxiety when in fact they may just be necessary parts of the process.
Yeah, Absolutely.
For example, you said 18 months as a general turnaround time. That's quite a long time, and that's something that probably most people, I'm discovering talking to other authors. But yeah, it's not something that happens very quickly. That's definitely something I've learned.
Yeah, it's so much waiting. People think it's waiting when you're querying and then you're on submission, but once you've sold, there's even more waiting. And yeah, your brain can get very full up with stress and thoughts. And so my other tip actually is just to keep working on new things. For me, it's the only way to take my mind off.
Well, there you go, exactly. So while you're waiting, you get a brand new book. So, for example, that's how The Bravest Word came to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right,
which, by the way, has a wonderful cover too. I love the colour scheme on that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, some little dreamlike and with a little woofy on the shoulder. Yeah, no, it's a really good cover.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's beautiful. Sarah Davis is was the cover designer for Paws and for The Bravest Word, and actually inside The Bravest Word, because one of the themes within that book, some of the content is to do with social media and the dangers and the powers of social media. And so, yeah, Sarah's actually designed some kind of screenshots, if you like, of Matt's social media pages. And she's just incredible. Yeah, if anyone ever gets a chance to work with Sarah, snap it up, because she's just marvelous. So she just brings my brain to life.
Yeah, the vision, yes.
Incredible.
It's always good work. Yeah, I'm lucky enough to work with a really fantastic artist who, I don't know how he does it. I scribble something on a piece of paper, take a photo with the phone because I cannot draw to save my life.
Same.
And it comes back exactly what I imagine in my head if I could draw or paint.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works, but yeah. But for me, that's one of the really cool, fun things about writing is at some point, the cover is going to become something that you need to work on. And if you can, even if your idea is one that ends up on the the cover at the end, just the journey of coming up with ideas and trying this out, trying that is so much fun, and it's a beautiful part of the process.
Absolutely, it really is. And when Sarah designed the cover for Paws, I didn't know that that's what she was going to design. I just sent over a few covers of books that I liked and thought, oh, this might suit the tone of Paws. So she created it, and it was just perfect. But Paws is coming out in the UK later this year, and I didn't realise I was going to have a new cover or a UK edition cover, and so that just came out of the blue, and it's beautiful. It's just I didn't think I could love another cover of the Paws, but I do.
Now, just like your doggies, you don't have one cover now; you have two.
Yeah, I know.
For Paws, and you get to love them both.
Absolutely. So yeah, these it is a real exciting. I know it doesn't always go to plan for some authors. I know quite a lot and have chatted to a lot of authors over the years, and some have ended up with covers that they just despise, and I feel really sad for them because it really should be a real wonderful part of the whole process.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm very lucky.
And as an author, all I can say is you're not going to read your own book over and over and over again, but you may be looking at that cover over and over and over again. And so I like something that I'm going to be able to hang on the wall and will always be happy when I see it. So
yeah, I agree.
And I know the book, don't judge a book by its cover, but I don't know. But the art, art cover is art in itself. It's there to move you as well. It's to move you in the right way so that you can dive in and discover all those words. So yeah. So I'd hate to. I couldn't imagine having a cover I didn't like. But then a lot of people probably don't like my covers as well. In which case, there's 100% me because I came up with those horrid drawings and paid someone to paint them. So no. So when it comes to moving forward, so you're obviously part of this journey, the publishing journey. You've got Paws, you've got a new cover coming out for that. You've got the new book, The Bravest Word, which we can have a review of as well. We obviously had a difficult couple of years. That goes without saying. 2022 is bolted out of the gates and it's on its way. We're already in the thick of it. Do you have any special plans, goals, or bucket list things you want to achieve when it comes to your writing, or even just in life in general? Is there something unique and magical that you've already got planned for 2022?
Well, this year I have, well, it's all a bit of a dream this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good way to start.
Yeah, well, last year obviously Pause came out, and it was marvelous. I didn't have any expectations, didn't know what if the book would be received. I didn't know, I'd have been happy selling 500 copies. So it was all just a brand new, and I just had a blast. This year, obviously, Pause has now kind of got into people's hands, and I've been invited to do a few festivals this year. So,
awesome.
Yeah, like honestly, you get the invitation, and I just sit and look at it and go, "Are they sure? Are they sure this was for me? Like what on earth am I being invited to this for?" So yeah, so I have I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about all of the things I'm doing, but I'm at Brisbane Writers Festival next month as part of their wordplay, which is presentations for schools and children to come along. And so I absolutely cannot wait. I'm presenting 4 days there, which is just fantastic. So that my topic is celebrating differences. So I'll be mainly talking about pause and autism and those kind of things. So very, very much looking forward to that. And then I'm also, now I'm trying to think what I'm allowed to talk about.
Don't reveal any secrets.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else at the moment I'm allowed to say.
Are you, or can you confirm or deny, or can you neither confirm nor deny? Would you possibly be working on a new superhero, or is that something you can't talk about? Or...
Oh, I can definitely talk about Harriet. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. I understand you want to bring a brand new superhero into the world.
Yeah, Harriet is actually out next year. She's scheduled for release, I think, March next year, but honestly, schedules change. That's another thing, probably a tip for people to be ready for.
That one on the list. Yep.
Schedules change, and that's fine. You just have to roll with it. So Harriet Hound is my first chapter book. So it's for kind of the next bracket down, that I guess 5 to 7 age kids. And Harriet is a little autistic superhero. Her superpower being dogs, naturally.
There you go.
Yes, it's from her family's rescue shelter. So she fixes and saves the day many a time. So the book that's coming out next year is 3 short stories of Harriet saving the day with her beloved pooches.
That sounds so damn cool.
Oh, you know what? I was so lucky not long ago to see a draft cover. I don't think I'm even allowed to talk about who the illustrator is either.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm allowed.
But I love the idea of using like dog rescue as part of the superhero power. Does that mean our hero has like access to is there like an underground dog network of all the wolfies?
No, nothing like that. She just she has these. I don't know how much I want to give away, but her super hero costume holds the key and the power to bringing the dogs to the emergency situations.
Okay, wow.
Oh yeah, so it's the best possible costume anyone could ask for. So she really is an unbelievably joyful character. I loved writing her. She has this voice and a view on life which is just so bubbly and so happy, and obviously with the dogs just being amazing. I cannot wait for the world to meet Harriet. She really is a sweetheart. So that's next year.
That sounds super exciting, and I'm wondering, does that mean that once Harriet is out, when you continue to visit schools, will you be doing so in a different uniform?
Well,
perhaps a super uniform.
Wouldn't it be lovely? I am hoping that I can get a costume made.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, not sure yet. I'll have to look into it, but it's I would love to visit the little kids in Harriet's superhero costume, because I think it would go down very well.
I think it would too. Yeah. Although obviously I haven't seen the costume, but I've no doubt it'll be super cool and it'll be super fun.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, so Harriet's coming along next year. And actually, I think there could be 2 other books from me next year as well.
Whoa.
Yes, again, I don't know schedules. They haven't been finalised, so I can't really say for sure if they are coming next year. But one is a middle grade called The Runaway Dog at the moment. But that title could potentially change. And that's a story about a boy, an autistic boy who goes to socialization classes, which is a horrible name for them. But it's really just to teach or help him rather than teach, help him with emotional regulation, understanding sort of facial expressions and body language. And so he goes to this small class with some other autistic children, but they become embroiled in a dog rescue. So they all become heroes. And that was a really fun book to write. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then also, I don't know, I announced it just the other day. I've actually written a book with Kate Gordon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have a co-authored book coming out, I think next year as well, which is about kindness and reaching out and helping people. So I'm very excited about that one as well.
You've got so much going on. That's just incredible.
Yeah, it's been this is my full-time job now. So I always I know people sort of get quite sort of concerned that they don't produce as much work, but this is what I do. So I have the time, I don't work another job. My children are a bit bigger now, so I do have the time to write. So yeah, but I'm very lucky also in that respect that I've found Walker, and they have continued to support me and my books. So it's very exciting, and I just hope people keep buying my books and reading them.
I have no doubt that's going to happen. And fingers crossed, sounds like you've got an incredibly busy schedule over the next year or two. But if you ever did maybe want to add to the collection, so you've done paws, but I'm thinking being a cat guy, maybe you could do cat, but we can call it jelly beans.
Oh, okay.
Because the little toes are jelly beans.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So there you go. Paws and then jelly beans.
Jelly beans. Oh, how cute. Yeah, well, interestingly, I'm actually allergic to cats.
Oh, really?
But, maybe I could slip a few cats into some future stories.
Yeah,
well, no, I love cats. I'm just I can't get too near them because they make me sneeze.
Yeah. But and just before we wrap up, when it comes to something like paws, do you think that would be a journey, or even with the Bravest word, either of the characters, do you think there might be a journey you're going to take with them as they grow older?
Well, I don't know at this stage.
Okay, yes, no secrets to be revealed.
Well, there's no secret at the moment, but I have my agent is currently in possession of the outline and synopsis and the pictures of A Paws 2.
There we are.
There's going to be a lot riding on that, because ultimately it will depend on how well Paws is doing. And if Walker see potential in a second story. If there isn't the need for it, then obviously I'll just have to adapt that story into different characters, I guess. But oh my gosh, I hope so. I really hope so, because I would love to revisit Alex and Kevin and give them another story with Derek and Vinny as well. So yeah, fingers crossed.
I can't see any reason for things not to be going exactly the way you want them to go, to the point where I suspect that in the near future, if I want to reach out and have the opportunity to chat with you, just like tonight, next time I'll bet you I'll have to go through agents and then because you'll be so in demand, and I'll be like, oh, it's just me, it's me. but
no, I don't think I'll ever reach or want to reach those sorts of heights. That's not me. I'm far too grounded. Had far too many years of being the underdog to ever want to be anything other.
Time to reach out, touch the world's heart through your beautiful stories, but also have the time to take your dogs for a walk. I think there you
absolutely.
go. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Well, Kate, thank you so much. I really mean it for taking the time to chat with me, to being a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast. And, it goes without saying that we wish you nothing but total success moving forward. And anything we can do to help, of course, we're going to be here. We do whatever it takes to try and bring, Australian authors to thirsty readers, should I say, hungry readers. I'm always trying to look for a good action.
Yeah.
But to book lovers all around the world. But no, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. And I do hope 2022 ends in with amazing fireworks, nothing but success, and just that as long as the journey keeps you smiling and you've just got some more beautiful discoveries to make.
Oh, thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing, because you're so supportive of the community here, and there is such a lovely community as well. So many fantastic writers and illustrators and bloggers, and so thank you for what you do. And if there's anything I can ever do to support you, do let me know as well. Thank you.
So I think you've made a guarantee then. You'll take my call when you're famous and I can get another interview.
Most definitely. Yes.
Yay!
Yeah, from the aeroplane when I'm in my first class compartment.
Yes. Yeah. You have 30 seconds, Darren. Speak.
Yeah, just let me get my champagne.
Kate, thank you so much, and all the very best. And I really do hope to talk to you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
So again, Kate, thank you so much for chatting with the Australian Book Lovers podcast and sharing your story with all of our, absolutely amazing listeners. And so much fun every time we chat. And I have no doubt we'll be chatting again in the near future. Kate has already been a part of a panel before with us, and I suspect it may be that she'll be joining us again real soon. But nonetheless, that was a fantastic interview, and thank you so much. And I hope everybody out there got to enjoy, just learning a little bit more about what drives her as an artist.
And I think amazing human being describes her well.
I think so, yeah.
I'm really interested in thinking about the middle grade readers and even then sort of earlier getting on to how we get people introduced to reading, because, in the old days, that's my days, reading, writing and arithmetic with the 3 R's. And then it kind of seemed to drift off there for a little while. And it was something that, reading for me was always incredibly important. And I was trying to remember some of the books that I read as a young person, and you just saying, I Could Jump Puddles by Alan Marshall. Those books kind of made such an impact on my life. And what books can you remember from your childhood?
It's always a tricky question, because, for example, I can remember I Can Jump Puddles. I can remember, Twilight's own books at some point.
Yep.
I've just read so many books that's just like, all I can remember is just having books in my hand.
Always having a book,
Choose Your Own Adventures, Famous Five, but all the way back through. But what I do remember, one of the things that the conversation with Kate sort of brought out in me was reflecting back on my early school days, and the nervousness that came with starting a new year, or being in a new classroom with sometimes with a new teacher and all that sort of stuff, or changing schools, which I did a couple of times. Always a little bit anxiety ridden process. But I also look back and I remember that books were really sometimes they were a bit of a guide to how to approach life at that age. So for example, at 6 or 7, whatever experiences that I was discovering the first time, then I did gravitate to books in the library that would try and help me, even though they'd just be stories, fictional, but they were like a manual, an instruction manual to help me, discover how to make friends, or what to do when you're changing your school, or what to do if you're getting bullied, and all those things. And so the books really were a bit of an instruction manual, I think, and I still think that's the case today, isn't it? Really, for when you're talking middle age or middle reads, I suppose, for that demographic, it's always going to touch on elements of life that is just that's just being discovered at that age, and it's such a vital tool to move forward and embrace those experiences and learn as a little human.
As a little human, I like that. There are, I think, as you mentioned, so many books that I've read over so many years that it's almost impossible to remember some of those ones from when I was young. Silver Brumby series, I think, sort of comes up. And middle grade was also a very long time ago, primary school. I think the writing of stories at that stage was also important as well. And it not only does it give kids a manual, but it also gives them permission to create. It gives them permission to jump into other worlds, to see themselves reflected in books, and to find their place in the world, or their images of themselves. And I really love that books can take you to another world. For me, not only just being a new person in class or that kind of thing, but getting out of doing the dishes was always one that I could sneak off and read a book, tuck myself somewhere quiet so that nobody could find me, and my older brothers and sisters would have to do the dishes. Retreat into a world. If I had been bullied, or there'd been something unpleasant, sad, or whatever happened in my life, a book was a friend. It was maybe that's why I like fantasy, is that it often will take you out of the reality but still give you the lesson, but in a format that made it not so confronting for me. So yeah, really love those things.
But I think you said something there that's, I think, profound and definitely hitting the nail on the head, and that is, back then, and well, it's still to this day, it's the same thing, but more importantly, back then, the books were a friend, but it was also the characters you're usually reading about are of the similar age, so the characters were your friend too. And because when you're a little tacker, it's not up to you when you go out and have on the weekend or spend time with your friends. So a lot of times you don't have that opportunity to just hit the road and go see whoever you want to see. And, so therefore the characters were the opportunity to hang out with friends. You could just open the pages and there you were. You're off on an adventure with good friends. And
yes. So, and I would read books over and over again. We didn't have a whole lot of money when we were kids, so there were a few books that we had that stayed at home. We were great library goers. They certainly didn't have the PLR and ELR at that stage. But I would often even borrow the same books in the library to reread them, over and over. Alice in Wonderland, Alice Through the Looking Glass, the Tales of Narnia, love those. And then, as I got a little bit further on, Madeleine L'Engle's book, what's that one? Wrinkle in Time, all of those things. And yeah, the Enid Blyton ones were the ones that we tended to have at home because, mass produced, they're probably a little bit cheaper. But yeah, things then a little bit older, like The Hobbit, I must have read that hundreds times, even before I then discovered The Lord of the Rings, and read that over and over. And it's when you see that brought to life, say in a TV series or a movie or that kind of thing, it sometimes can be really difficult because they've been your friends, those characters, for so long that in your mind they are so clear that when someone's presented to you as something a little bit different from your avatar that you see, then it's like, I don't know whether that's right. And then they do the best they can, but they can't please all of the people. But you go.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that, I think looking back, when you are reading as a little tacker, those adventure stories and whether it be haunted houses or mysteries and in the forest or whatever it might be. But it helped me, I remember growing up as a kid, there was a school across the road, which was my primary school at one point. But, on the weekend, when I was old enough to sort of just go out and was allowed to just get on the BMX and go for a couple of laps. Yeah. It felt like, for me, it felt like I was creating my own adventures, just like in the books. So a simple trip to the oval on the BMX was actually, a huge adventure. And that ability to frame that experience as a big adventure came from, the love of reading and love of adventure books. So when I stepped out of that door, it was, or if I stepped out in the backyard, it was discovering a new planet. And if I'd been reading science fiction or something, so it could really color, at least for me, the way I looked at reality and the way I experienced reality. And likewise, the bedroom was the whole world back then too on some days. So so much fun.
So the quotes I've got today are, well, I think kind of connected to Kate's interview and her words about children and seeing herself in books and her son seeing himself, and also the fact that, books can change the world. So I've got two quotes for you. Ooh. The first one is, it really makes a difference to hear stories about how someone like you can be loved. And if you don't hear those stories, it will change who you are. And that's
interesting.
It is, isn't it? It's by Rebecca Sugar, and she's an American animator, the creator of the Cartoon Network series Steven Universe, making her the first non-binary person to independently create a series for the network. So there you go. But yeah, I really like that. If you don't hear those stories, it would change who you are. So Kate's 2 stories that are out in the world is going to change lots of kids' lives and lots of adults' lives who read stories to kids. So yeah, if you don't see yourself in stories, get out there and write one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. Kate's books will definitely be touching the hearts of a lot of readers out there, young readers. But it's just an interesting premise, isn't it, that to read about someone like yourself being loved, it will help you discover that emotion.
Yeah. To hear about stories about how someone like you can be loved. Yeah, I really like that. So thank you, Rebecca, for that quote. Give me one of your quotes.
Well, I was inspired, obviously, by my wonderfully fun discussion and conversation with Kate, but about pets, because obviously she's a huge doggy lover and I'm a huge pet lover, and I have a cat that walks like a dog when I take him on a lead. But so the first quote I'd like to share is by a British writer called James Herriot, and the quote is...
James Herriot. Read all those too. Good.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
His quote is, "If having a soul means being able to feel love and loyalty and gratitude, then animals are better off than a lot of humans."
Yeah.
So
lovely.
James Herriot, yeah.
Yeah. Because he was a vet over in Britain somewhere, that was in the Yorkshire area. Yeah, but yeah, I did read lots of his stories, funny stories about animals and all those. In fact, I think it was behind a TV series, but there you go. Let me give you my quote, and this is from Malala Yousafzai. Apologies if I've pronounced her second name incorrectly. So she's often referred to mononymously as Malala. She's a Pakistani activist for female education, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014. So she's currently 24 years old. So yeah, she has done particularly well. And I really love this quote, which is, "Let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world."
Touche, yes.
Yeah. So there are lots of people, there's lots of research, and there's lots of absolute volume of evidence that teaching children to read, giving them education, changes lives, and changes countries and changes the world. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the best instruction manual there is, reading, isn't it? It's kind of like that, what do they call it, the perpetual motion machine.
Yes.
Because once you learn how to read, then you can educate yourself.
Yeah.
So the education becomes the method of education. So, eternally. Yeah, love it.
Okay. What is your number 2 quote?
Okay, so my number 2 quote is from a gentleman called Charles Yu, who's a Taiwanese-American author. It's a short one, but I like it. It is, "If I could be half the person my dog is, I'd be twice the human I am."
Very nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Half the person. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, makes our invisible human tails wag with happiness reading that one.
So. Very good. I'm sure that my doggies would agree to you. Mind you, they're locked out of the office at the moment because they do get a bit excited sometimes.
As my cat is also locked out of the office at the moment. Sorry, Bobby. Yes, I could be half the person my dog is, I'd be twice the human I am. But you can replace dog with obviously your animal of choice. But
yes, indeed. Yeah, don't be constrained by the main domestic groups. There's a lot of information out there. Now, who was it we talked to recently about their horse? I know. That was the book launch that I went to, and Fiona White, who wrote a story growing up in rural Australia, or regional Australia, her horse was her absolutely favourite friend. So there you go.
I don't think you can substitute the word spider in that quote, but I'm sure there are people out there with pet tarantulas. I know of two gentlemen actually that at some point, I don't know if they still have them, but they did have bird catching spiders in tanks. So maybe maybe you can put the word spider in that quote.
There you go.
I personally wouldn't, but that's just me.
That is just you. All right. If you have an unusual pet and you wanted to share that information with us and you've been listening to this episode, you can find us on Twitter at Australian Books. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Australian Book Lovers, also on LinkedIn and YouTube, although it's probably less exciting to put a response in there. You can, of course, email us, admin at australianbooklovers.com. You can jump on the website and subscribe to our newsletter and be in the running for lots of giveaways, going to australianbooklovers.com/booklovers and subscribe there. Or if you're an author and you want to be in the lineup for chatting with us about your book and what's important to you about writing and what you're doing in your creative space, you can list your book with us. The submission form is australianbooklovers.com/authors and send us all your details. That is absolutely free. There's no charge for that. I know we're mad. We'll get around to making some money one day, but just not today.
Although there may be a small surcharge if you do have a spider as a pet. It is written there in the fine print, so you can lie about it.
There you go. No, not at all. All right. So, Darren, there is more to come. There'll be a book review after this. But until then, what are we going to do as our tagline?
Well, I've been thinking about that. Before we jump to the tagline, I just want to let our listeners know that the episode 56, shall we say, we've got author Callan J. Mulligan, so science fiction author.
Yes.
So that's going to be super fun as well. So that'll be in episode 56. But as far as today's tagline, well, chatting with Kate made me definitely reminisce, and I did travel back in time and brought back some memories that I hadn't experienced for a long time about being in primary school and those first days of being in the yard of a new class and all those sorts of things. So I thought, what about if we were teachers coming through the PA system when they make announcements through on the Oval or something, and so now I can go back in time and be that teacher coming through the crackly speakers, laying down the law.
Very good, very good. And of course, school announcements makes me think of you had to play the music before the announcement, and we had the Fight of the Gladiators or the circus thing, what's that one?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anyway, but there you go.
I don't remember that. I do remember the sheer horror when you would be working in class or doing whatever and you just hear suddenly Darren to the office, Darren to the office. I'm in trouble.
How many times did you hear that announcement, Darren?
Well, not many in primary, but quite a few in high school.
There you go. Well, that's
to be honest. Yeah. Yes.
Very good. All right. So perhaps you better introduce the tagline.
Okay. So I don't know how we're going to do this, but with the powers of podcast technology, let's see what happens. But attention, everybody. Please remember to read more Aussie books. Darren, also, can you please come to the office? Thank you, everybody, for joining us for episode 55, and really look forward to joining you again for episode 56. I hope you had a fantastic time with Kate as much as I did, and take care for now.
Okay, bye for now. Sha'kert by Ishmael A. Soledad is a thoughtful and oft-times challenging read. It takes you inside the minds of a group of end-space refugees flung serendipitously onto what is thought, at first, to be an unoccupied planet. An Amish community, though we only get to know a handful of these in the story, a family skating the legal edges, and 2 crew. It's an interesting concept, and it took me a little while to settle to the slower pace of the first-person reflective narrative. I was intrigued by the themes of survival, occupation, relationships and self-development as filtered through the thoughts of the different protagonists. The world building was thorough and enjoyable, the technology interesting, and as the awareness of Sha'kert by some of the refugees built, the world gradually declared itself and its intent. I didn't feel as though there were any heroes in this story, and I struggled to warm to any of the characters fully, flawed as they were, and throwing their beliefs at each other. This in itself mirrored the discomfort and uncertainty many of them felt in the new world that was anything but terra nullius. No spoilers. It also reflected my own discomfort at hearing some of my own cultural and ethical assumptions thrown back at me. What would you do to survive as an individual? As a community? How open to change are you? What is really important? The ending fell a little flat for me, and I didn't quite feel like I had a grip on the complete story. A good speculative fiction read to make you think differently.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.